And Guy Caron joins me now from Hamilton. Guy Caron, good to see you again. Thanks for taking time to speak with me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're about to make your final big pitch to the party members before they start the voting process. What's your message?
Well, it's been a great campaign, a marathon, and we're getting to the final sprint. So what we need to demonstrate at this point is the ability to connect with the membership and also to inspire. What I've done in the last few weeks is to express the fact that I'm the candidate who can build bridges between Quebec and the rest of the country, build bridges between urban Canada and rural Canada, build bridges between the various regions of the country, and this will definitely be part of my message. And the fact also that to hope to win in 2019, we need to strengthen our forces in Quebec. We were able to get a breakthrough in 2011. Unfortunately, 2015 was disappointing. But in 2019, we need to have a strong showing in Quebec, not because Quebec is more important, but rather because it's impossible to think of forming government without having a strong representation in Quebec.
Okay, let me come back to Quebec in a second. But you know, a lot of the focus of the campaign now has been on Jagmeet Singh and the new members he signed up, the money he raised, the fresh face that he presents in a race of otherwise familiar NDP faces. What do you think you offer the party that you don't think Jagmeet Singh does?
Well, I do think I have momentum at the end of this race, simply because of the sheer number of high-quality endorsements I got, and not only from Quebec, from everywhere in the country. So I think that demonstrates that I was able to connect with the message I just told you about, and also connect with putting forward the strength I have. What I can offer, first and foremost, to the party is economic credibility. We know that for the last 50 years, Liberals and Conservatives like to portray us as tax and spend and a party that doesn't know how to manage, which is interesting because we have a high public debt without a single government, NDP government, to blame for. But in the end, I do have the credibility, I do have the reputation and the ability of making people trust the NDP on economic issues. And this has been part of my message as well, and this will be part of the message I'll be giving the memberships in this last possibility or opportunity.
All right, let's go back to Quebec. It had become a big part of the NDP base, rather. You touched on that. It's clearly slipping now, though. They loved the NDP in 2011 and loved it a lot less in 2015. There are now fewer than I think it's 5,000 members signed up in Quebec. What specifically will you do to win Quebecers back to the NDP? How do you plan to do that?
Well, you're right to say that 2015 was disappointing for us in Quebec. On the other side, in a disappointing election, we still were able to elect 16 MPs, which is the second highest number in Quebec, and we were able to get 25% of the vote. So we have roots. We have created those roots in the 4.5 years of last Parliament. And we need to strengthen those roots. We need to ensure that in the 32 places, the 32 ridings where we finished second, in the 10 ridings where we finished second with less than a 10% margin from the first place, that we are able to mobilize, we're able to inspire the members to get back to the NDP and to give us this push that we need to continue the work that Jack Layton has started and that Thomas Mulcair continued.
Right. I mean, one of the challenges for the party is, and we've seen it during the debate and the campaign, Bill 62, the Quebec government's proposal to ban face coverings from anyone receiving or giving government services in Quebec. Your position on this is that you disagree with it, but you respect Quebec's jurisdiction to enact this kind of legislation. All kinds of rumblings now of discontent inside the caucus with the position of the other candidates on Bill 62 and whether Quebec has jurisdiction here and what the other candidates should say about it. How concerned are you that some MPs could leave the caucus if the new leader doesn't clearly signal support for Quebec's distinctiveness?
Well, to me, it's a question that we have to talk about, and not so much Bill 62 per se, but the whole issue of the debate that's going on in Quebec right now about secularism and religious neutrality. And we have three choices as a party. Either we hide our head in the sand and we hope that the issue will go away on its own, which is not realistic, or we just, from the outside, tell Quebecers that they can't have this debate, that it's not a legitimate one to have, which is not the way to go. What we need to do as a party that has strong roots in Quebec now is to be able to be involved in a debate and build that bridge between the importance of the freedom of religion and the respect of both charters, the Quebec and the Canadian one, and also the debate that's taking place right now on the mixed city between religion and the state. And if we're not talking about it during the leadership race, when are we going to talk about it?
Right.
I do think it's crucial that we position ourselves on this issue, that we have a respectful debate, and that we are able to position ourselves to help the debate go forward in Quebec, because this debate is being held on the right side of the spectrum and on the left side of the spectrum. So
right,
we need to be part of that debate.
Are you concerned about some of the comments about this you've heard from your rivals?
I'm concerned about the fact that there's been some flip-flopping, that no one else seems to have a coherent, consistent policy on this. And this is exactly why we need to debate it now. We need to ensure that coming out of this leadership race, we know where the leader will stand on this issue, and how that leader will be able to connect with Quebecers who are currently having this debate.
Yeah, so, you've already, I mean, he supports you, but Pierre Nantel, one of the caucus members, Mr. Nantel, has already said that,
yes,
has already mused about the possibility that maybe he'll sit as an independent if the new leader of the NDP isn't clear about respecting Quebec jurisdiction. How worried are you that could happen?
And I certainly hope that it won't be happening. I know Pierre well. He's been elected in 2011 like I was. I know how close to his heart this issue is as well. And for him, if you've read his letter correctly, it's really a matter of the respect of the ability of Quebec to legislate in this matter, to decide in this matter, which is consistent with the Sherbrooke Declaration, and especially the part that says that we respect the fact that Quebecers form a nation within Canada, and also that they have a right to self-determination, to determine their future. And this debate is actually a good example of this. So I'm not going as far as Pierre is going, of course, and I certainly hope I will have a chance to chat with him face-to-face today. But what I'm seeing right now is simply a message that I've been carrying as well, and that we need to ensure that we sit down and we redraft that direction that the NDP will have to take as a strong component of Quebec's political life now.
But if the new leader isn't, and let's assume the new leader, for the purpose of this question, is not Guy Caron, if whoever the new leader is does not make it clear that the NDP, federal NDP, respects Quebec's jurisdiction in these kinds of matters, what's ahead for the party in Quebec?
Well, it will be difficult, and it will be difficult because that would mean simply reneging on our commitment to the Sherbrooke Declaration. It's clear. We either respect that Quebecers within Canada, of course, have a right to self-determination and form a nation within Canada and can have these debates, or they can't. So you can't have it both ways. This is why we need to have this debate now. This is why we need to ensure that we're moving in the right directions, and that we'll know from the leader we'll have after this leadership race, that we'll know exactly where we'll stand on this. So I agree, and this is why I put this issue up front, so that we can have a debate and we can allow every single candidate in this race to position themselves and to think about this issue and about where it will lead the party.
All right, Guy Caron, always a pleasure to speak with you. Good luck in the days ahead, and onward you go, because the race is not done yet. There's still lots of work to do, but thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter.